Invest in security is a hot topic in the global market. So first of all, how do you define security in the investment universe?
The security theme is really quite broad, but it really is about protecting the security of people, of companies, and of governments around the world. And it can have multi verticals. It's not just cybersecurity, which is often what people think about when we talk about security, but it's many verticals, including the life sciences, so testing, access control, transportation safety, even data centers. There's a whole amount of software also that protects people when they make payments online. All those verticals are part of the security theme. It's not just down to cybersecurity, but a lot more new verticals. And the reason being is that, first of all, we had obviously the whole COVID pandemic and this move to the hybrid or cloud model, where people were no longer just working from one place, but multi places, the office, back in the office, or at home, or work from anywhere, learn from anywhere, which has increased the security stack that's needed all across the world, not just in those countries.
So there should be bigger investment opportunity in the security sector. Which subsector do you prefer?
So I guess the impact that's really strongly felt right now is in cybersecurity. You find that all over in the world now on a government by government basis. But I think the cybersecurity increase in spending, if you want, is going to come over time. It's not overnight. Second is anything related to contact tracing, data security, or even food security. That's also been heightened with what's happening around the world. And I guess there's obviously the energy crisis. So protecting critical infrastructures, that's also another very important need in terms of security, or even securing supply chains. I think that's become a priority. And I think maybe even additional EV spending. And in EV spending, we are talking about the software that protects the driver in a car. That's all going to increase more recently because of the need to do so.
What are the drivers of the growth of the security industry?
And I think the awareness has been raised by many governments, but not just for critical supply chain or critical infrastructure, but also for enterprises, right? To be more aware of any type of hacks, whether it's through the cloud, whether it's through even any sort of third-party provider. So definitely an increase in IT spending within the cybersecurity space, but also I think the heightened awareness that governments are also imparting on enterprises to be more aware about any type of sort of access control, even through facial recognition or digital credentials. Those are all increasing spending and increasing awareness to increase your spending or innovation. So I think what's going to happen also is an increased innovation cycle. So the business cycles that we've seen in the past are now going to be innovated even more because of what's happening. There's a lack of labor, there's a lack of a lot of talent as well to develop this innovation. So I think the acceleration of AI as well within cyber or within any sort of cybersecurity element will be important.
You mentioned there will be long-term growth potential in the security sector. So how long do you think this growth potential will last?
It's a very good question. Again, I think you need at least a minimum of 12 to 18 months to see this sort of business cycle and innovation increase spending. It's not going to happen overnight, but I think regardless of high interest rates and the macro environment currently where people are fearing a recession or fearing a high interest rate environment, I think when it comes to sort of protecting all these elements, whether it's cyber, whether it's critical infrastructure, whether it's any type of software related to the cloud, all that is not something that you can forgo even in a recession. So a lot of these business models have very strong recurring revenues. They also have business models that are fit for purpose, where if you need to increase the security stack, you can keep adding services from the same provider, for example. Those are very interesting elements, which I think are important in the context of the current macroeconomic environments.
What technologies associated with security that we need to pay attention to?
In the cyberspace, I would say, and this is probably especially during COVID, and even more so now, it's the zero trust architecture that's very important in cybersecurity. That's really, you don't trust anyone in the whole system, your own employees. So you you have a number of access controls, and these access controls are related to specific passwords, so that if there's any unusual activity, I would say, from any even inside employees, you can cut their access very quickly. So we no longer work from home, but work from anywhere. So it's either office, combination of office and home. Especially when you're at home, you're using multiple devices on multiple clouds, including your personal Wi-Fi. So protecting emails, protecting, I don't know, you looking at your iPhone from work or your iPad from work, all those multiple sources of vulnerabilities really need to be covered, and zero trust architecture is one of them. But anything in cyber related to the cloud and hybrid working is just a game changer for most enterprises today. The second one is identity access management, also related to it's part of a bigger theme, which is the privilege access management, also related to passwords and all sorts of entry points. And then I'd say the third one is probably more AI related, so related to all these sort of AI technologies embedded in cybersecurity to track and see unusual activity and be able to cut any access to any parts of the business. I would say those three types of technology in cyber are probably what we've noticed the most, and this is related obviously to the cloud, to data security, but also personal security.
Do you have any advice for retail investors who are interested in security sector?
For any investor, I would say it depends on what you're looking for long term. We're long-term investors. We look at long-term themes and invest in that. So the short-term volatility, which is coming mainly from the macro side, whether it's higher interest rates, whether it's a stronger dollar, whether it's supply chain or raw material shortages and components shortages, you have to distinguish those short-term headwinds versus the long-term theme or trend of security, which I mentioned is not going away, right? I think there are three long-term drivers that we look at. The first one is innovation. So cybersecurity being one of them, but innovation in any type of tech, whether it's AI, whether it's cybersecurity, cloud software, etc. That's very strong in our theme. So the digital infrastructure, if you want, very, very strong. The second one is urbanization. So big cities now modernizing the security stack, whether it's through critical infrastructure and all sorts of other supply chain protection or security. That's very important to our theme and very strong. And increasing, right? You have a labor shortage, so a lot of it has to be even more automated or more done through software and technology. And then the third one is regulation. Regulation has been a very big tailwind for the strategy, I think, since the beginning. It's not going away, right? Each time you have an event like COVID, or you have a conflict in like Ukraine and Russia, that increases the level of regulation. And those rules and regulations never go away. It's something throughout the whole world and throughout history. We've noticed that with the EV cars and the need to also decarbonize and be less dependent on energy, for example, from certain regions. So regulation is another third theme that's very strong. So those three strong themes are there to stay, and they're only increasing the security solutions that we see. So if you're interested in these kind of investments, you have to look at the long term, and that's a cycle of I'd say 3 to 5 years, even 5 to 7 years if you want. So you have to be comfortable with that. We love the sector. We've been in it since 2006. So we've got a lot of experience also in terms of downturns. We've experienced downturns in 2008, the global financial crisis, again in 2015, the European credit crisis, and again in 2018, and always outperformed. So the question is really what you're looking for as an investor. But the theme itself is very solid, and I think very strong trends that are not going to go away.